everyone. Good evening. Happy Monday. Hopefully you're staying dry. I'm Ashley Reaves with Reaves Realty Group, and then I have Nick here.
Nick with Groves Capital. Appreciate everybody joining tonight. Still got a couple people coming in. We'll admit you guys as y'all come in, and then just follow along as we're going. So hope you guys enjoy the next series of our webinars that we're going to present to y'all. We did one a few weeks ago, just trying to go on over the entire home buyer process. So today we want to drill down a little bit more on one aspect of the home buying process. So today we want to talk about down payments, kind of some of the different down payments, what it takes, because I'm sure you probably get asked that quite a bit, right? When people come to you asking, hey, I'm ready to go look at houses, probably one of the first questions you get is about money, right? About how much I need to put down and stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's every house that we look at. How much is this going to cost me? Right.
Yep. What do I need to come to the table with, right? 20%, like $20,000. What is it? 10%, 0%, like assistance programs, grants, like it all over the place. So we're going to address a lot of those questions tonight. So hopefully you'll have a better understanding when we get done.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So if you joined us, if you were with us a few weeks ago, we kind of went down the steps of home ownership, and Ashley did a very great job of explaining all these, kind of hitting on each one of them. So today what we wanted to do is we were just going to focus on saving for the down payment and understanding what down payments are, how much you can afford. Because like we said, we know one of the questions that get asked a lot is about down payments and how do we save for them. And although we're not financial advisors or anything like that, we can certainly come up with some tips on what can help for down payments, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just to give you a brief introduction on what the down payment is, you know, when you buy a home, it's definitely, you're taking a significant step towards purchasing a home, and understanding how the down payments work is very essential for when you're purchasing a home, right? Because a lot of people, when they come to you, they really don't know anything. They're looking to you for guidance on what to do, right? And really, when you're looking at us, we want to be able to provide that guidance, explain in details about down payments, what your different options are depending on their situation.
Yep.
Explain why they matter. What can some of the advantages be, right? Because I'm certain, like when you're doing an open house, you're probably asking 20 questions about, are you military, you know, veterans, whatever it may be, because if they come in as a veteran, that can change their down payment requirements, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And is there a difference depending on the home? Is there a difference of the types of down payments that can come with the home, or is any home pretty much whatever goes?
Some homes qualify for like USDA. Some homes qualify for just cash and conventional. So it really all depends on what your loan program is and what you're comfortable of putting down. It will depend on what home you would actually qualify for that program.
So a good question, probably, if you were holding an open house, as a homeowner, a good question to ask you is what kind of loan programs this home qualifies for. Is that a fair question?
That is very fair.
Okay. Because not all loan programs, if you got something, you know, out in the sticks, it may qualify for more programs than one that's in the city, maybe.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's awesome. So we'll get all into that. That's a different, you know, approaches for down payments, just kind of like that. So when we talk about a down payment, what is a down payment? And it's the initial amount that you contribute to the purchase of your home. And really, it can vary from 0% to 20%. So we mentioned a home out there, you know, out in the countryside, boonies, sticks, whatever you want to call it, but that can qualify for a 0% down program called a USDA. You probably dealt with quite a few of those, right?
Yes.
Perfect. And so that is location based, right? So that can be 0%. It also depends on your income, just full disclosure on there. And we can go up to 20%. You can go higher than that. But just for terms of this webinar will go up to 20% because something special happens once you get to a 20% down payment. But yeah, depending on the loan type, you will kind of have everything in between there. And really with down payments, if you can think about it, it's like that initial stake that you're going to have in that property, right? That initial equity that you're bringing to the table. So it's not really like, oh, this home's costing me $10,000 just so I can purchase it. Well, really, you're investing $10,000 into your property already, right?
Yes.
Because that's very important in our market right now is the home equity.
Yes.
Right. And like if you bought a couple years ago, you're probably in a pretty good situation to maybe make a move right now. Wouldn't you think? I mean, because home prices have risen a little bit, right, since a couple years ago.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I have a seller right now that bought in COVID, and he's still going to make a good percentage just investing in a home from not even 2 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. So making a lot of money off that home, right? So, and the thing about that is that, like, was he a first-time home buyer by chance?
Yes.
Okay. So first-time home buyer probably hasn't done this a whole lot. So he's about to go buy another home, probably still not too familiar with the process, right? We did this back in COVID. COVID was a crazy time. Probably still needs to be educated on the different kind of programs because he could still be thinking that I may have to put 20% down, right? Because it's my second home. I'm no longer a first-time home buyer.
Right.
Right. I feel like something that's very misunderstood is only first-time home buyers can come to the table with 5% down, 3.5% down, and that's not true, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because there are a lot of buyers that think that, oh, because I'm a first-time home buyer, a lot of them like to do the FHA because it is a little bit lower on the down payment. But there are rules and regulations, and even if you used FHA 4 years ago, that doesn't mean that you can't use it again in the future. There's terms, and people need to understand that Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac changes its guidelines all the time. So
Absolutely.
to talk to someone like yourself that's in the day-to-day lending would be great. Yeah.
Sometimes talking to us can be a little bit more informative than Google. Although Google is definitely a good source to go get all your information. Sometimes it's better if you're talking with a real person, just like WebMD, right? You never know what you're going to get into. So as you can see on the graph here, what we did was we just kind of laid out a quick infographic of the different kind of loan types. So you can see it was 0% down, as your VA for, military and veterans, USDA, which we talked about with the location based. First time home buyer conventional, now that's a special program for 3%. FHA is 3.5%. Most conventionals is going to be 5%. The 10% ones, that's something we can have a conversation later about. Those are some unique programs that we have. But the 20% down, what that does is when you have 20% down on your home, it gets rid of something called PMI, private mortgage insurance. So it lowers your payment by a little bit. But what we want to make sure is that will make sense for you to put that much money down, because you may not want to liquidate all of your assets, right? You may not want to drain your bank account if you're moving into a bigger home or your first home and you have to furnish it. Right. But this is good information for, I think, everybody to know the different types of loan programs. But which brings us to our next question is, look, how much should I put down? Right? Well, what are some of the pros and cons, and what in this situation, what would be right for you? Where you can see on this graphic, if you put a higher down payment down, typically you can put you in a different bracket, lower interest rate, lower monthly payment, right? Because you're putting a substantial amount down.
Yep.
Reduce PMI premium, like we just talked about, premium mortgage insurance, that can go down the higher your down payment is. Once you get to 20% and above, it goes away. Now, if you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're not wanting to put a whole lot of money down, one of the good things is that you probably get into a home a whole lot sooner because you may already have that money saved up, right? You don't have to wait. More funds for a renovation. Like if you need to do something to the home, furniture, whatever, and keep an emergency savings, right? If you need an emergency fund. But there was something that you had mentioned the other day about like $10,000, right? $10,000 in the down payment. Like, how much does that actually affect, like, my down payment? Like, what, you had some really good information on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of going into what our next slide's going to talk about is what's the difference between a buyer putting down 5% compared to 10%. I mean, there's a huge chunk of change compared to 5% to 10%, depending on your sell price of the home. But actually, how much difference does it make in your monthly payment? And it's really not that much. I mean, especially if you, even if it's $100. I mean, I know as a family of four, you can't go out to eat without spending $100, right? So that's one meal a month that it really makes that much difference.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. So I'm glad you explained that. And like you said, like, let's go right into that to show you what the differences would be in that. So say we have a few different types of loans here, right? Your VA, right, for the veterans and the active military duty is definitely in its own category. But I want to show it here just in case we had any veterans, which we thank you for your service. If you're attending this webinar right now, or if you watch a recording a little bit later, you could see what this would look like for a $400,000 home, priced out what we have here. Now, granted, these numbers can change and probably will change depending on the market and your location. And how old the home is too, right? Because homeowners insurance changes with depend on the home a little bit.
Yeah. So it always varies, and obviously, like just like what you said, location. I mean, tax rate changes. So when you're shopping for a home, not only is it the down payment that takes effect into your monthly payment, it's your taxes, your insurance, HOA. Because a lot of lenders will average that HOA payment in there to make sure that even though you're not paying the HOA monthly and it's a yearly or maybe quarterly, or if you're in a condo, maybe it is monthly, but they all that takes effect into your monthly payment.
100%. And as you can see here on the graph, going from an FHA 3.5% to a conventional 5% down, right? You could pay $6,000 more for your down payment and save $50 a month, right? I mean, that's not a whole lot. I may, in certain situations, I may want to keep that $6,000 because if I had that $6,000, like, how many $50 can I get out of that $6,000? Like, quite a bit, right? If you kind of looked at it like that. Now, I also want to show what it looks like when you put 20% down. Now, this is where your payment can drop substantially, right? Because you're dropping that premium mortgage insurance. So that could be $100, $150 that gets dropped off per month. So really, unless we plan on putting 20% down, this is really a in-depth conversation that I think that we need to have to figure out what is the right situation for you. Like, what is the right, scenario, right? Because I think it's all putting these puzzle pieces together to make it work for you. And yes, we may be paying like $50 more a month or $100 more a month, but it may make you more comfortable moving in the home if need to pay for moving expenses or whatever it may be. And so we just want to show this. So if you see this right now, take a screenshot of it, take a picture on your recording, pause it, write it down, do what you need to do. We can talk about this later. Like I said, these numbers will change, they can change. And if there's something that you want us to do for you personally, we can figure something like this up for the different down payment options for you on a particular home that you're using. Obviously, we used a $400,000 purchase price on here. We can do this for whichever purchase price you'd like. So some of the options. So when we're talking about saving for a down payment, like, that's the big thing. Like, well, okay, well, I want to buy a home, so how do I save for it? And, we have some traditional and some alternatives. Now, there's a whole list of these that go on. But some of the traditionals is just, cash savings, like cash on hand. Like, people are still, I think, like, keeping cash under their bed or in a shoebox, right? Which we need to have a conversation if you do that, because we need to figure out what you're going to do with that cash, because it needs to be in a bank account. Conversation for later. But you can read here, right? So like checking, savings, if you have investment accounts, tax returns, like a lot of people probably wait for tax returns to come out, which I think is probably why we usually have a lot of activity going on, like spring to summertime as
Yep.
well, right? Because people are getting tax returns back, and that's a good way for somebody to help save for down payment, right? Some of the alternatives that a lot of people don't think of is gift funds. Like I can have a family member, sister, relative gift me the money as long as I want to pay back, to help with my down payment. And we see a lot of that. We see a lot of people, family members helping them out, or some sort of inheritance, trust funds, whatever it may be. Retirement accounts. Right? If you have a 401k, your 401k typically will let you either borrow against it, which usually that's not our number one choice, but you can withdraw from your 401k. Yep. To use towards the down payment. Now, typically it's only a certain percentage, but you can take that to use that for down payment, which is really good. If you have stuff to sell, I guess, right? Like if you want to sell some assets, cars, whatever it may be, that's one of like the non-traditional ways. And I don't know, have you ever heard of an employer giving an employee money towards purchasing a home? Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to a couple people, and really, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if you have an employer, they're investing in their employee, and home ownership actually creates a little bit of stability. And so it's one more way that employer can invest in that person by saying, you know what, I will give you $5,000 towards your home purchase to help with your down payment. So yeah, it's a very real thing. So don't discount that, right? Like if you can do that. I'm sure I'm leaving some stuff out. Have you ever had anybody come up with some crazy story on a down payment, how they were able to get a down payment together?
I've had people, it asked 3 or 4 people for gift funds and created GoFundMe accounts.
And, there you go. Okay.
And it worked. It worked. We closed and stuff. It was kind of crazy. I've never seen someone do a GoFundMe account for their house, but people felt their story, and especially when you're newlyweds and or thinking about getting married, maybe that's part of your wedding gift that people even in your family will contribute to.
That's a good idea. So if you're getting married, instead of asking for stuff for your house or your apartment, just ask for money.
Yeah.
Right? Just ask for a bunch of money. Like, hey, I need a down payment for our next
home. You get a down payment and get to pick your own stuff.
There you go. So it's a GoFundMe page. I have not heard of that. So yeah, that's something. So plenty of ways to get creative, right? I know it's easier said than done, but really, when we're looking at 3.5% down on a $200,000 home, right? I mean, we may be able to use a couple of these options to be able to make that work, which brings us to something else that I really want to talk about. And a lot of people actually ask about it, is down payment assistance programs. What are they and what do they do? Now, we could talk about this for a very long time and go into all the programs, but we're not going to do that. What we are going to say is that there is a such thing as the down payment assistance program. It's not very hard to get approved for them. And there's something else called grants. Now, the difference is grants typically have a balance, right? A fund. And once the funds run out, that's kind of it. If you want any other, information on that, please reach out to Ashley or myself. We can look this up for you, but with it being at the end of the year, typically the grants are done, but down payment assistance programs are still available. I want to list a few of them that me and Ashley thought of. Here's just a few of them that are here that are in Texas. So if you're not in Texas and you're watching, there are down payment assistance programs for your state as well. There are a couple national programs too. And a lot of times, so some of them go up to 5% for a down payment assistance program. And so they're quite common though, right? Like there's down payment.
Like T-Shack, we do T-Shack all the time. And you just got to understand that as a buyer, you have to live in that home for an X amount of time, for a time period, because as you are getting government down payment assistance program, if you move out before then, you have to repay if you decide to sell. So you need to be very cautious and know what's all involved
Yep.
when you do the down payment assistance program. But they're great for buyers that maybe they have the funds, but they don't want to liquidate their whole checking account
Yep.
and they want to keep a little cushion there. It's a great program.
100%. And I think probably what often gets mislooked or overlooked, overlooked, is closing costs.
Mhm.
And so they're like, a lot of people will be like, I need $5,000 for a down payment. And so they save up $5,000 and they're like, I'm ready to go buy a home. And then we go buy a home and now it's like, well, we need $4,000 for title fees, all the closing costs. Well, I don't have $4,000.
Yeah.
All I have is $5,000. So this is where the down payment assistance programs or grants can come into play. There are plenty of different ones, like Ashley was saying, like you have to live in there a certain amount of time or you have to pay it back. So there's different ones. Some of them can be forgiven. Some of them are additional payment that goes on like a second mortgage. So it depends on your situation and what works best for you, and what we can get worked out there. So I definitely think the down payment assistance programs is something to ask about if that's something that you want to learn more about, because it's, there are limitations on who can get them, but for the most part, if you need help, I feel like between the two of us, I mean, we will be able to help, right? Figure out some sort of a solution for them.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's definitely great. I will say, like we said, if there's anything else, any kind of other things that you want, one of the things we did last time, and we want to hit on it again, is we have what's called a cost of waiting. If you're renting right now and you want to see what it's like for your rental payment that you're using right now, see how much of a home that you can afford with that, please let us know. We will personalize any of these rent versus buying flyers that we have, some of the cost of waitings if you do currently own a home. If you want to see what it's going to cost for you to sell that home or what it's going to cost you to wait to purchase that next home that you have, let us know. Scan that QR, we'll help you out. Or if you want more information on like some of the down payment assistance programs or some of the other creative financing that we can do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate y'all and I appreciate you, Nick, for talking us through all these different down payment processes and different ideas, because you can get very creative when you're looking for down payments.
And I think it's important when you have two people who are on the same page that work together, that kind of knows a little bit about that, right? Like Ashley is very familiar when it comes to the down payment assistance program. So when we start talking about that and you asking questions about it, she can really help you navigate through that process before we have to get down to like a bunch of the numbers.
Yep.
So it's really good to have somebody of like her expertise to be able to help you, guide you through those situations. So once again, we thank you guys. Appreciate you guys being with us on your Monday night. We will answer some of the questions that came in the chat. And if you didn't see this live and you're watching the recording, thanks for watching this recording, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.